welcome to Inside Melbourne, your official Melbourne Football Club podcast. Exciting times because this is episode 1 of what will be a very, very exciting year ahead. Presented by our great friends at Zurich who have signed on for 3 years with the Melbourne Footy Club. My name's Clint Stanaway. Time to welcome our co-host for 2018, Tom Morris from Fox Footy. Tommy, hello there.
Clint, go D's, great to be here, and I couldn't think of a better man to share the Melbourne story with than you. This is terrific, and we've got a number of good guests lined up. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but I think it's important we welcome number one.
Let's do it.
And we've started with the big dog, in more ways than one. That's what he calls himself. Max Gawn, All-Australian. He's got the beard back, and it's down to about the sternum at the moment. Maxi Gawn, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is very, very exciting.
You're relishing the opportunity to be guest number 1, no doubt.
Yeah, look, Ryan had to send me a background on both of you to work out a bit of a background story, but I've always thought a podcast, especially around the football club, would work, so I'm quite excited to be the first guest.
Max, we're going to talk about footy. We're going to get some questions from the outer, which is great because there's lots coming in via social media. I'm most interested in you at the moment, though, because your story last year was one of frustration, wasn't it? This hamstring injury that affected your season. You came back. You weren't the player you were in 2016. But how are you going now? And you're looking forward to 2018?
Yeah, the hamstring injury was there. I probably wasn't in great form before that either. I had the NAB Cup JLT series, and we were playing 2 rucks throughout that. And rounds 1 and 2, I wasn't unbelievably good, and then round 3 I did my hammy, so I probably wasn't in great form anyway, so I was a little bit off my 2016 form, and when I came back I was probably a little bit unfit. It's hard to keep your fitness up when you're out for 11 weeks, and I wasn't riding, swimming or running, which is 3 ways that I tend to keep fit just day to day, so that put me back a bit. I tried to accelerate my fitness in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but I didn't really get there. Rolled my ankle pretty bad against Port 1 week as well, and that sort of hindered the last 3 or 4 weeks. The
flip side of that, Maxi, is that you are a picture of absolute health and fitness right now. Have a look at you. You're lean, you're fit, you're just sparkling, mate. How are you feeling right now? We're how many days away? 9 or so days away from
Depends when you listen to the podcast, doesn't it?
from the big stuff. But we're ready to roll. You're ready to roll, no doubt.
Yeah, and it probably delves into why I chose to get as fit as I could. I mean, I try to get as fit as I can every pre-season. That's the idea, but I wanted to go a step further this year, and I chose diet as the main thing that I could probably get right over the off-season, and managed to shed a few kilos, and I'm feeling relatively fit, lean. I've been running really well throughout some of the tests, and had a relatively good test in round 1 and 2 in JLT. Goldie, who's very strong and very fit, so he was able to test me out. And then Tom Hickey, who's a completely different player, but also parts of me had to be tested out in that game as well.
You say diet. What has been the number one thing that you've gone without then this pre-season compared to different years?
Here we go.
It's probably the life of a supermodel. I've decided to cut out carbs.
I can tell.
Carbs and sugar. Like, sugar's easy. I mean, all footballers, apart from fruit, would probably not have sugar in their diet, but carbs was the big one.
So no pasta, bread, these sort of things.
Yeah, so eggs without bread, which is...
Mate, you're not living.
Which is pretty boring.
Jeez.
And like meals that I used to always love once a week, I used to cut them out, so burgers and stuff like that. But it probably wasn't that drastic in terms of the diet, just carbs and sugar, and then I still drank every now and then.
Coffee, you mean?
Yeah,
I was going to say.
Black coffee.
Hey, the landscape of the club has changed so much over the years since your arrival, and it's changed again in the off-season. A few very exciting arrivals. I speak of, obviously, Jake Lever being the main one. In terms of those arrivals, speaking more so about Jake, what has he brought to the club right here, right now?
It's probably the smallest change we've had going into a season. All the coaches have pretty much remained the same, and pretty much all the players. We only delisted a few, and we picked up a couple. So Jake Lever is one, and pretty exciting stuff. I didn't know much about him, although he did tear his hammy chasing me in round 16 up in Darwin, which I thought, I was wondering why we're recruiting him, because he's done his hammy chasing me. But
do you remind him of that?
Yeah, I did. And he's already taken himself out of the Darwin game this year. So, but he's a born leader. He's started training really well. Obviously, we're not going to know much about him until we get into football, but what he's given over the pre-season is super, and you can tell why he was such a high prize recruit.
I want to know about Clayton Oliver, because Clint talks about you shaving, not shaving, but cutting some weight down But Clayton Oliver looks an unbelievable picture of fitness now, and a shadow of the man that he was when he was a pudgy 18-year-old drafted a couple of years ago.
Literally a shadow. Look, Clayton's he's a very different cat, and they seem to be the guys that turn out to be the best footballers because they do things differently. And Clayton's one of them. He works incredibly hard day to day. He did this little thing that I think it's swim 100 kilometres before round one, and I think he's on 130 or something like that. So he's beat it by about 30 Ks, which is crazy. Yeah. And now he's got a sore shoulder. But Clayton's a seriously good player, seriously good talent, really fit. Hopefully he just doesn't get into fights with Carlton supporters this year, and we should be right.
We've got some big questions coming up in our next segment from some of the fans from the outer. But just before we get into that, speaking of Clayton, I want to ask you about the St Kilda match. Clayton Oliver, Christian Petrarca, that little celebration they had going. I believe they were stirring the pot. Is that right?
I didn't actually. I did see the highlight, but I didn't actually could work out what they were doing. But Christian Petrarca's got a handshake with 17 players. I don't know how he remembers it going into the game though. So everyone when they kick a goal, if track comes up, you've got a secret handshake.
He's got one with you as well?
Yeah, we've got a little one. It's just a high five. But I think if Buggy and Track are in the same area and Buggy kicks a goal, they could do a 2-minute routine. So I'm pretty excited for what that's going to be.
All right, stay tuned. We've got more with Max Gawn coming up right after this on Inside Melbourne. Welcome back to Inside Melbourne, presented by our friends at Zurich. You're with Tom Morris and Clint Stano, and our special guest, Max Gawn. We've got a real treat, a special guest coming up a bit later in the show. Big Jeff White will be joining us here. Tom, over to you.
Yeah, big compared to most of us, but not Max Gawn. Max Gawn towers over Jeff White. Max, I want to ask you about the preseason training camp. It's something we need to talk about because it was in the news a lot, and it continues to be in the news a lot, and I think it probably won't be settled until Melbourne maybe win a flag this year. What happened? How did it happen? And what was the resolution after the event?
Look, it was probably a massive build-up by the media on what actually happened inside. There was concerns from the camp last year, obviously from a medical reason because of the injuries that happened, but that wasn't purely the reason why the camp was pulled. A few people got together. The only problem I'd say is the timing of when it did get pulled, but we ended up going on a better camp, went and sat in the sun for 7 days in Montreal, which I think is a much more productive camp.
Will it affect any part of the pre-season or your fitness in any way? It's only 2 days, wasn't it? So it's not like it's a massive chunk of the summer anyway.
No, we got a long weekend instead, which was that's probably a much better option for me. I definitely enjoyed the long weekend going into Christmas instead of the camp, but I would have done the camp. I would have happily done the camp. I'll happily do it again if it comes up, but it doesn't really, anything that happens in December probably doesn't really matter in March 25th, round one. And
the coaching staff from the outside, it seems, aren't too bothered by the whole decision to leave the camp in the past.
If they were still bothered now, it'd be a bit of a problem. Look, a couple of people got worked up about it at times. Media, friends and family. There was all sorts going on. But give it 2 days after the decision was made, and everyone was best friends drinking tea together. So
just take a deep breath. Sometimes, Clint, I reckon.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let's refocus our energy and attention on the Cats. Round one here at the mighty MCG, our home ground, of course. Do you think Danger and Ablett will be there?
It's our home game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's exciting. I love having a round one blockbuster as a home game. Hopefully all the Melbourne supporters can bring their wine and cheese.
And rugs.
And rugs. But in terms of Danger and Ablett, look, I don't really mind. I'd almost want them to play because it's going to be a cool centre bounce when I rock up with my three and Zach Smith rocks up with his three, and we see who wins.
I like that, my three. Yeah. It's like you control Nathan Jones, you control these midfielders.
Hey, that's if Nathan Jones gets in those three.
Maxie, which brings us to our first question from the outer. It comes from Blue Lighting W1N. Best bromance at the D's. Tell us.
Best bromance at the D's. Probably Buggy and Track are there, but I reckon the real one is Michael Hibbert and Bernie Vince.
Yeah.
They're both genuine bogans, so they have that in common. They're still wearing their Mongoose t-shirts and so on. So, look, Hibbo's got the intelligence of. Actually, I won't go.
No. Give us a comparison.
What's that real dumb dog? A cocker spaniel. No, but Hibbo and Bernie get along real well, and they're very inseparable. Play golf almost every day, and that's probably the bromance.
Are you a golfer?
I don't know how to answer that because I am ambassador of Callaway, but
Of course.
I'm a terrible golfer. So
Okay.
I play off about 27, which is
That's not very good.
no.
That's fine.
Room for improvement.
Yeah.
You make up for it with footy. Question from the outer here. Alex Johnson. I presume not the Sydney Swans, Alex Johnson. It's quite a common name, Clint. How does it feel being in Petrarca's shadow is the question.
If it was Alex Johnson, we would have been talking about knee recos.
We would have been,
We
yeah.
do have that in common. But the question was, sorry.
How does it feel being in Christian Petrarca's shadow?
How does it feel about him? Yeah, well, everyone's going to be in Petrarca's shadow soon. The kid's an absolute star. Obviously, he's had a relatively big pre-season as well, and I'm guessing another 1 or 2 to get to pure stardom. But he's gonna help us this year and come through the middle and sit in the square at times and basically do what he wants.
And big news, of course, in the off-season that he's re-signed with the club. That's a real investment in the future, no doubt.
Yeah, Christian's one of those guys that likes to get things done pretty quickly. He would have been knocking on Josh Marnie's door saying, "Can we talk about my contract, please?" And he probably would have signed the first offer as well, which, I mean, it's good for the club, but probably bad for him. But it's like, I'm not sure how many years. Is it 3 years or 4 years? So that's pretty exciting to have him but I can't see him going anywhere after those 2 either. He's a pretty loyal cat. Looking
ahead to the season, and Clint mentioned Geelong, and you spoke about the Cats briefly, but are you the sort of guy that sits down and looks at the season and goes, I can't wait for this game, or are you more relaxed? You sit back and just take it as it comes?
Relatively relaxed. I'm pretty excited to play in this Geelong game. And I want it to be a good game so we can get it every year. Melbourne, Geelong, 2 oldest clubs, MCG, start the year off. I think it's a great idea, and we've had some games in the past, which is usually the interstate club coming to Melbourne, and unfortunately the crowd tends to be around 20,000, 30,000. So to get a big number at the G for that game and hopefully a good performance would be good. Everyone looks forward to Queen's birthday. Tuesday night football this year, randomly against Richmond on Anzac Day Eve, so that's going to be fun. Apart from that, I just go week by week.
We are sitting here, of course, in the MCG, looking over the superb ground that is. We're also using a Max Jones & Co. table. Solid construction here. Yep. Another question from Cass. We know that you're a bit of a barista. Any tips on making the perfect coffee?
I do like my baristering.
Still active?
Well, once I worked out that it's not that hard of a job and it's not that different and everyone seems to do it, I don't actually talk about it as much anymore. But look, coffee's pretty easy. You just got to get fresh beans and know how to do your milk. That's basically that question's answered.
There you go.
I'm like this one from Jordan Broadway. Clint, does Gawny have a favourite D's player in our AFLW side, and does he go to the games?
It's hands down Lily Mithen.
We can't lose it at Geelong.
No, I've told her that to her face.
That's the worry, isn't it?
I asked her. I said there's some Geelong murmurs and there's a Cotton On deal, and I just said just be careful here. Melbourne's going to win the next couple of flags here, so stay here. And me and Lily bonded over a couple of beverages that went till early in the morning one day, and managed to get her on my shoulders at some point during the night. And
it's pretty high up.
I think I went on hers later on in the night.
Jesus.
But
it's all coming out here on Inside Melbourne.
She's a super player and a real good girl. So hopefully we keep her. And yeah.
Hey, Jeff White, did you watch much of him when he was playing for the D's?
I did watch Jeff. Very different player to me. Obviously a big leaper, and I know Jeff was there. So Darren Jolly went to Sydney and then created another beast called Mark Jamar under him, and I feel like it's been a relatively good cycle. I'm sure Jeff made Russian train hard and try and work every minute to try and get a hit out, and that's what Russian did to me. So it's been sort of a nice little succession plan from Jeff to Russian to me. Now I'll try and get Mitch King going. Well,
former club champion Jeff White will join us right after this short break on Inside Melbourne. Stay with us.
Mark of the last quarter with both teams playing for their season. Jeff White.
Hello again from the team at Inside Melbourne, presented by our great friends at Zurich. Max Gawn in the house for episode 1, a great privilege. Tom Morris too, and our special guest this week, we'd like to welcome 268 game champion of the Demons. Of course, it is Jeff White. Whitey, g'day.
G'day, guys. How you going?
We're going really, really well. We just heard there that, that loud roar from the MCG crowd when you slotted the winner against the Dogs. That must take you back.
It does. And it takes me back, actually, the memory of Travis Johnson just walking up and saying, mate, it's like a golf swing. Just flush it, just hit it right to left, line at that right-hand goalpost, and, away it went through. So I knew straight away I'd flushed it. You know what it's like, Gorney.
If someone had said that to me, I'd have sliced it.
Let's put a little bit of draw on it, Jeff.
Yes, that's right.
We get a bit nostalgic when we talk about these days. One thing that I always remember is the Andrew Leoncelli goal against Adelaide. Not after the siren, right. I mean, just amazing stuff. But what are the great memories from you of your playing days, and what was a pretty successful period under Neil Danaher?
Yeah, there's plenty of moments. I think 98 was a special year because we're going back to you, Gorney, so just hold on to your seat there. 98 was a special year because we only won 4 games in 97. So, and Neil, that was Neil's first year. A lot of new players, and we got to a prelim, which we're unfortunate to miss out. But there's so many special. Obviously, making the grand final. I think the last quarter against Carlton in the qualifying final.
Brad Green, Clint.
Yeah,
remember that?
Brad Green, Andrew Leoncelli, Bruce, Cameron Bruce, like. It was like I remember coming at 3/4 time, and Dana said, "We're down, blah, blah, I've got nothing to lose. You just go for it," and that's what we did. So yeah, there's plenty of special moments. I think any of those sorts of things, and hopefully Gorney can experience this year and in the years to come. Just those finals times, you look back in your career and you go, okay, well, there's years that we didn't make the finals, but the years we made the finals are where the memories are, and the crowd at training and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, look, there's plenty of moments, but I think that game against Carlton was a memorable one. And I remember Matty Collins had the ball in his hand when the siren went, and there was so many. I can't pronounce the words on this podcast, but there were so many of those words flying when the final siren went, because that was the year for Essendon and Carlton. We weren't even in the picture, and we finished third on the ladder, so that was good fun.
Jeff, I'd like to get that feeling hopefully in the next sort of 2 or 3 years, but I'd like to think I've still got about 10 years left in my career. I just want to know how far away your son is, because I feel like he's going to be putting me out of the pump soon.
Mate, he loves you. He loves Gorney. He loves the Demons. Yeah, look, he loves his footy, and I push it. He loves golf. He loves all sports, and he actually had trials last night. It's called a hinterland trial thing, and he did well. He enjoys it. He's just grown he's so tall. He's athletic. So hopefully, mate. Hopefully he dons the red and blue, and hopefully you're still there, and he could. That would be a great duo. I'd love to see it.
We'll go awesome. A little tandem ruck combo.
Yep, exactly. Just teaching the ropes.
Not beyond the realms of possibility. What about you, Jeff? You've had a difficult time of it recently. It's good to hear from you now and sounding so healthy. But can you tell us what happened for those D's fans out there that don't know?
Look, it's been a rough 6 months. Just try to, as you do with anything, and this is, I guess, comes from Neil, is take a positive out of a negative, and you obviously see what he's going through. But yeah, in August last year, I was just getting my son ready for his last training session, and felt someone pushing against my right side of my body, and I'm not a small guy, and I felt like I was tipping over, and looked to my right, and my arm was stuck, my right arm, and couldn't move it. Had no feeling in it whatsoever, and it probably lasted about 40 seconds. Anyway, so I had an MRI, and they found out that I had a stroke, which was obviously life-changing for me as 40-year-old guy, quite healthy, with kids, all that sort of stuff. And anyway, so we did some further testing and couldn't find anything, but we did this thing called a toe, which is like putting a rubber tube in water when you have a puncture, and they blew air in my heart and found I had a hole in my heart. So one thing led to another, because you think about, well, I put all my body through that stress for 14 years and play with a hole in my heart. I couldn't believe it. So simple procedure that they got me through, and I had heart surgery 3 weeks ago. So a big weight off my shoulders, purely because, go. Sorry, Clint.
Sorry, Jeff. No, sorry, you go.
Yeah, so I guess the stressful part for me was that I know how I felt that day when I had the stroke. So going from those days, from that period till when I had heart surgery, having those days, it was really quite stressful. But just try to get through it. I'm glad we found something. I'm glad we found the pathway to how the stroke occurred, and I'm hoping to get involved in some stroke foundations and things like that to try and tell my story and help others through that have go through these sorts of things.
Which is all terrific awareness, and you should be applauded for that. You mentioned the great man Neil Danaher. Have you spoken to him since then? And obviously, what he's going through too gives you a lot of perspective.
Yeah, it does. And I had a quick chat to him and stuff like that. And he just basically said, health is your wealth. And that's, it just, blew me away. He just said, I just stick to that every day and, try and live every day as best I can and take positives out of negatives. And that's what he does. You see that. I mean, you notice that through all the stuff he does with the foundation and all that sort of stuff. And he just takes it away from his own personal feelings. So, he's a wonderful inspiration to everyone, and I'm just so fortunate that he was actually my assistant coach at Freo for 3 years, and then obviously the head coach at 11. So 14 years under Neil was, very, very privileged to be a part of that.
We're sitting over the table from Max Gawn here, and he's a big part of the Demons for 2018, clearly. But how do you feel the D's will go this year? Do you reckon we're ready to take the next step? And clearly you'll be watching closely when we do so.
Oh, definitely. And one of the things I noticed the game the last TLC, is that right?
TLC.
Is that right?
TLC.
Tables, ladders and chairs.
Don't go chasing waterfalls, TLC.
Getting it all mixed up. It changes every year. Like when I first started, it was the Ansett Cup. So going back a long time there, Connie.
Ansett. Who are that?
The one thing I noticed was the pressure, the balance of the pressure. That stood out to me. And I noticed, that was one of the things. Cameron Bruce was a part of obviously Hawthorn, and that's one of the things they focused on a lot when they won their 3 flags, that balanced pressure. And that's what I noticed in their last practice match. And, I think you keep, as you know, Gawny, keep the boys healthy and make it you have that consistent amount of plays week in, week out, become predictable for one another. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you've got the same guys going through the midfield, they can read you can read them. And I'm really excited about this year. I know that the whole of the Melbourne community are, but got so close last year, which I reckon is really burning inside. It's almost like they lost the final when they didn't play the final. So, really excited to see how they go this year. And big game coming up with the Cats, with the inclusion of the little master. But I just think they've got the right pieces in place to really take a strong step in September. But you got to take week by week and make sure you have a healthy list to get there.
It's well said, Jeff. But I just want to know what you did to Mark Jamar, because he made it incredibly hard for me to win a hit out for 5 years. Did you let him win a hit out at all at training? Because he punished me.
You know what, Dana's just to bring in, you bring in Darren Jolly, you brought in Troy Simmons, you brought in Mark Jamar, and he used to he challenged me all the time and would try and do angles and try and do this and try and do that. But, one of the things that Russian really got good at, and I guess, I don't know if I can hang my hat on it, but he not only changed angles, but would hit you with one arm and hit it with the other hand. And that, as you know, as a ruckman, if you go up against someone and they're using the other hand and then they hit it with the other hand, you just can't get close to them. And I know that Russian really implemented that a lot. And I think we went a long way to him being an All-Australian. So I don't know if that sort of wore off and went against you, mate. But mate, you're doing well now. I love watching you ruck. And the thing I love about ruckman that. And I can see the traits in you, obviously, is reaching at the highest point. I mean, you see a lot of guys that do a cocked arm where it's half raised to try and get the ball, but your arm is always up tall. You're tall enough as it is. So, it's good. It's good. I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it.
Jeff, I think quite a few Melbourne supporters would remember that your biggest strength is your jumping rather than the actual physical size. Do you still think there's room in the game for ruckmen of your size? I mean, you're only a couple of centimetres taller than Patrick Cripps. It's quite remarkable how well you're able to do as a big man in the game.
Look, the circle's obviously a challenge for those sorts of guys. I think Nick Nananui's is probably an exception because he's got the height, but he's also got the leap. And Yeah, I know that when I come up to, against Dean Cox or Aaron Sanderlands or even Luke Darcy as well, those guys, even though they were much taller than me, I knew that I'd have an opportunity to have a run up and jump over them. But the circle really provided a challenge, and I had to get my angles right to make sure I could get my knee to their chest and get them off the ball as quick as I could and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it did become a bit of a challenge. But, yeah, look, I think a lot of teams now are going for the Gawny type, the guys who are tall, mobile, that can get around the ground. Because the thing is, back in the days when I was sort of playing, you'd have Scott Wind, you'd have those sorts of players that sit behind the ball, Sean Wren, and you just go to the midfield and become another option and just kick over them. So those days are certainly gone, and you've got to have a ruckman that's tall, but obviously mobile, gets around the ground and averages 15 to 20 possessions a game, because you wasted space if you can't get the ball.
Hey, Jeff, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for joining us on our very first episode here at Inside Melbourne. And on behalf of everyone, we can't wish you any more all the best for the future with your health. And we look forward to seeing you here at the G in the next few weeks.
Thanks, guys. No, thank you. Privilege to be on the first podcast, and good luck for the rest of the year. And good luck, Gawny.
Thanks, Jeff. Good man.
Well done, Jeff.
Jeff White joining us there, an absolute champion of the club. We'll be back with our final segment here on Inside Melbourne after this break, including a preview of our AFLW clash with the Bulldogs. It's a big one. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Inside Melbourne. Maxi Gawn, our special guest for episode 1. We're in the home stretch. First and foremost, I want to focus in on our AFLW side. The ladies doing great things. Currently sit second on the ladder. Huge clash against the Doggies at the Whitten Oval on Saturday night. Maxi, obviously sad during the week also to see poor Mel Hickey go down with the knee, Rico.
Yeah, so first of all, it's exciting that we're in the position we're in. Similar position to last year, so hopefully they can get to the big dance. And unfortunately for Mel, Mel's one of the ones you see around the club doing everything she can to play the elite standards she does. She's in the middle of September, the middle of August, which is months where the girls probably shouldn't be there, doing lots of hard work, lots of training, and it's pretty unfortunate. But saying that, Rico's can develop a bit of character, so she can come back even bigger and better next year, and hopefully she does.
So one more win will guarantee a grand final berth. You must have seen the ladies around the place at Amy Park. They must be pumped.
Yeah, Colin Garland's actually the most pumped.
Why is that?
He's a very close mate of mine, Colin, and he's taken about 9 roles, but two of them is the VFL coach for the women's and also one of the development coaches for the AFL side. So he's relatively excited. He's doing a lot of running and stuff as well. Walking around a big smile on his face, which is good, and it's rubbing off on all the girls as well, and the girls are all pretty excited and lightening the place up. Saturday
night, get there, Whitten Oval. Great to see as much red and blue in the stands as we can. They've done some great things out at Casey so far this year, and you were back at Casey a couple of weeks ago versus the Saints. Did you see Roosie out there? I heard his dulcet tones in the commentary box.
Well, we do watch the game sometimes with commentary, sometimes not. But we watched it a little bit with commentary, and we heard Roosie's commentary. And I'm surprised he made his way out there. I think it's the second time he's been out there. The first time was to watch his son Tyler play for Northern Bullets. But he only thinks the Monash goes to Burke Road and stops there. So he would have been pleasantly surprised when there was traffic down at South Gippy Merge. He'd be like, is there people that live out here? He honestly would have said that.
Probably says enough, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Very good. I want to ask you about this year and the expectations on you, because clearly we all have expectations, and internally I'm sure you do as well. And there's been a lot of questions flying in about where we need to finish on the ladder. Where do the Ds need to finish? How many finals do we need to win to be successful? Is a premiership a chance? Where do you see it all? What's the lay of the land at the moment in terms of expectations on the club?
It's pretty exciting. Apart from maybe my first season in 2010 and potentially a little bit of last year, there hasn't really been expectations on our football club. So it's pretty exciting, and I love having an expectation on our football club. And we came 9th last year. I've said this one a bit, but we want to improve on 9th. So we've gone 10th, 9th, and the next way up is obviously to be in the top 8. So we missed by 0.15% or whatever it is. So to improve from there means obviously playing some good footy and hopefully in September.
Have you thought about how difficult it will be to put a premiership medal around your beard, Gawny? Because it's so long now, by September it actually might be impossible to do so.
You might not be able to see the medal. Look, I actually do get a little bit of thoughts about, I mean, when you watch the Richmond game last year and then Doggies the year before and even some of the Hawthorn wins and so on, you just sit there and you picture yourself in that moment and what you do, and you get some butterflies, and that can come whenever. That came in 2012 at some points for me, and we were the furthest thing away from getting to that flag. So
you dream.
Yeah, you dream that day, and I mean the dreams are becoming more and more, and hopefully we can get there one day.
Hey, before you go, Peter Neal and Rory Stocker both want to know, will we see Gawn in 60 seconds at some stage this season?
Look, my ASA might have to go up a tiny bit, Clint. But, no, Gawn in 60 seconds. I obviously started when I was 20 years old. I'd done a knee reco, needed something to do, and I thought, why not interview a couple of players? And I mean, it's the only time I ever spoke to Mitch Clark when it was 60 seconds worth of conversation, which was good. But look, that's exciting. But I'm happy for someone else to come out and do something. Like Alex Neil-Bullen's one of the more funny guys I've met.
But what's the play on words though? Because Gawn in 60 seconds works so well. Neil-Bullen doesn't. I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. Nothing really goes into that, does it?
Hyphenated names just can't really go on TV.
No.
No, look, he's incredibly funny, and he's done a couple of the roaming around, talk to the players, and look, I'm excited for maybe someone else to step up and I can just sit back and maybe be the one getting interviewed.
Throw down the gauntlet. I like it. Max Gawn, thanks so much for being with us Inside Melbourne, Episode 1. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck this year.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on before either a win or a loss. I mean, everyone's in a relatively good mood at the moment, so it's good.
As we hope they will be right through the season. Again, thanks for joining us. Good luck. And hey, we'll be back with more Inside Melbourne next week. Make sure you subscribe and stay up to date on our social media channels. Next week, a huge show previewing the Geelong match. We're going to be joined by the senior coach, Simon Goodwin. Make sure you get around us for that. That was Inside Melbourne.